What is going on, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another video. So today's video should be a really fun one. Not only are we going to be doing a little bit of maintenance on the E36 M3, but we're also going to be installing some really cool mods. Now, I can't speak for every car enthusiast, but just personally speaking, my favorite part about driving these cars and building these cars by far is just the engagement. Just, you know, getting to feel how the car feels and hear how the exhaust sounds and just kind of rowing through gears. Just all of that makes the experience of driving these cars amazing, at least for me. And I think there's no better mods than the kind of mods that kind of upgrade that, kind of emphasize that feeling, and that's what we got going on today. So today we're going to be installing my RTD chassis mounted shifter along with brand new Revshift 95A poly engine and trans mounts. And while we're in there, we're also going to be replacing the selector rod joint and selector rod joint seal with brand new OEM parts. Yeah, I'm really excited. I've owned a ton of these E36s, and I've been an E36 owner for several years, and you know, I've done a ton of things on these cars, but one thing I've never done is just anything having to do with the shifter. I've always wanted to upgrade them, but I just never got around to doing it. And now that this car is destined for the track, I want to make this car feel like a race car, you know, kind of fulfill that childhood dream of building a race car. And I think a chassis mounted shifter is the way to do it. And so I am really excited to get this on the car. I was kind of waiting for these parts to come in because I've had this shifter now for probably a month or two. And yeah, I was just waiting on the parts. But now that we got them, I want to get them on the car. And so enough talking. I got to get the car in the air. I will update you guys as I start taking parts off of the car. So with that, here we go. All right, so we're inside of the car now. I've spent the last couple of hours removing the exhaust, which gave me access to remove the heat shield, which gave me access to remove the drive shaft. And once I got the drive shaft out of the way, I'm able to fully have access to all the shift linkage underneath the car. But now that I have that out of the way, I want to show you how to remove the shifter out of your car. So let me turn the camera around. And so here we have the stock shifter. Let me zoom in. I took out the shift boot and the little sound deadening that goes right here, and I also took out a few pieces of the center console so I have access to kind of reach from behind right here. But in order to remove this shifter right here, what you're going to want to do is on the bottom where this shifter goes into the carrier, there's a plastic ring around the side right here. And all you want to do is take like a flathead or some pliers or something and just kind of get in there. And what I did is I just took the screwdriver and just pushed it and turned that ring counterclockwise until it couldn't turn anymore. And then once you have it there, obviously you have to disconnect the shifter from the shift rod or the selector rod down underneath the car as well. But once you have that done, you should be able to just pull this out of the car like that. And so now that I have that little ring turned counterclockwise, I can get underneath the car and hopefully show you guys. I'm gonna try to get some good lighting under there to show you what I'm talking about. But I'm gonna go ahead and disconnect the stuff from underneath the car and then pop this stock shifter out and then remove the carrier, which we have to do since the shifter I'm putting in is chassis mounted. And then we can get into hooking everything up and replacing the selector joint and the selector joint seal as well. So I will update you guys as soon as I make a little bit of progress or can get underneath the car and film. All right, so here we are in the trans tunnel. I have everything out that I needed to get out. I am pretty much at the halfway point. Everything is removed. All I have to do is now install everything and it should be good to go. But I wanted to give you guys kind of a visual of what you can expect to see down here with the drive shaft off and all the heat shielding off and the guibo off. So you kind of get an idea for what you're looking for, because every video I tried watching to research this, obviously down here is very dark normally, and so you can't really see a lot of stuff, or people tend to not film anything. But I kind of wanted to show you a visual of what to expect. Let me zoom in a little bit. There you go. And then here you go. So obviously this is the transmission. You have your transmission mounts right here. This is where the guibo would sit, and this is where the drive shaft would run. And then up here, which you guys can't see currently, is the hole for where the shifter goes through. But Yeah, up top right there is where the selector rod joint sits, and then behind that, once you remove it, is the selector rod joint seal. Up top, you can kind of see those two like forks, those two little prongs right there. That is what the shift carrier kind of sits in, this part right here, and then a pin runs through to hold this in place. Obviously, the shift carrier sits stationary. I'll show you once I get out from underneath the car. I'll better explain this setup. But yeah, this is everything. I already got the selector rod joint seal out. Like I said, I'm pretty much at the halfway point. I just got to install everything. But yeah, hopefully you get an idea of what to expect. And I'll explain a little more in depth what you got to do to replace this stuff and how this stuff works now that I showed you this visual. So let me get out from underneath the car and I'll show you guys that stuff. All right, we're out from underneath the car, and here I have the entire E36 shift linkage assembly. These are all of the parts that are involved in your shifter linkage. And so I briefly just want to talk about kind of how it works and these parts individually and what to expect. So this part right here, this one, is your carrier. It is not designed to move. It is supposed to be stationary. This end is kind of suspended in the car, and then this end just kind of attaches to the transmission. There's like prongs in the transmission, you saw probably in the last clip or so, but there's just two little prongs on top of the transmission, and then this slides in, and then a pin goes in from one side. But yeah, that's a stationary part. And then obviously you have your shifter, which is mounted in there. And if you could see, watch the joint in the selector rod, but if I move the shifter, notice how that moves. And so that's how the system works. If you're looking to do a short shifter, it just kind of changes this fulcrum point, which all that means is like the point at which it pivots. And so it might move the ball up or down. It might change like the length of this up or down, and then you end up with a shorter throw. Things to point out: if you're trying to upgrade your shifter and maybe you aren't going chassis mount and maybe you just kind of want like an OEM plus or to refresh it with a fresh OEM parts, the points that would cause a kind of more sloppy shifter is, despite this shift carrier being stationary, it's supposed to be held still. On the end here, where this like kind of pin is, or you know, the end of this, it sits in the car in kind of like a rubber bushing, and that rubber bushing can fail over time and cause a little bit of flex because there is tension on this part when you're shifting gears, and so that can cause a little bit of flex. You could buy, I'm pretty sure, polyurethane ones or like billet ones, and then obviously you have the kind of collar inside of here that locks this shifter into the carrier. Over time, obviously that gets worn out. You might, or the ball might wear out on your shifter. So, you know, the shifter with a fresh fulcrum point or that little ring in there, you could either get new ones or upgrade that. The carrier itself, on the end, there's like a little rubber bushing in there. I'm not sure if you could replace that on its own. Maybe you can, but if you can't, I'm sure they make upgraded shift carriers. And then there is your selector rod. Now your selector rod, the OEM ones, I believe come lined with like a Durlin or like a polyurethane liner in this. But you could buy billet versions of this. And not only that, but a fresh one will come with, I know it's gonna be kind of hard to see, but inside of there, there's supposed to be like fresh foam. Let me grab my new one real quick. So here is the new OEM one. And as you can see, there's like a fresh piece of foam in there. And if you look real close through that hole versus this one, the foam is completely disintegrated in there. And so that can cause some slop in your shifter. And so all of those parts together, just over time, if they all are worn out, you're probably gonna have a sloppy shifter. And so mine wasn't too bad. I'm not sure, you know, how long any of this stuff has been in the car, but I'm excited to get the chassis mount because not only is it a chassis mount, but it's self-centering, so I should not have any play at all. But yeah, I just wanted to show you guys that because, you know, before this, I was not too familiar with this setup just because I'd never taken it out of one of my E36s. But now that I have and I did my own research, I wanted to share that with you guys because not a lot of people go really in depth with explaining it. And hopefully that kind of clears up any questions you might have had. So now I'm gonna move on to mounting the RTD shifter in the car. I gotta figure out like where it bolts up and kind of line it up and make it sit the way I want it to sit. And then I will update you guys when I start throwing everything back together. All right, we're back in the car. Obviously, it's a new day. The car is out and about. I'm not in my normal spot at the house, but the shifter is installed. Unfortunately, since the last clip you guys saw where I was kind of explaining the shift linkage, the OEM shift linkage setup, from that clip to finishing the car and having it put back together and, you know, driving out of the garage, I want to say it took another 7 hours, and I'm not exaggerating. It just, Dude, working on the ground on my back and just not having the right tools for the job made this significantly harder than I think it would have been. I don't think this job is nearly as hard as maybe I made it by doing it the way I did, but nonetheless, the shifter is in the car. It feels amazing. It's super stiff. The engagement is crazy. The throws are short, and I couldn't be more excited. So before I wrap this video up, I do want to take the car for a test drive and kind of set you guys up something like this, and kind of just drive the car, no talking, no music, and let you guys listen to the shifts and kind of see what it looks like and see the throws and stuff. So let's do that, and then we'll wrap the video up. All right, I think that'll wrap it up for today's video. It was a super awesome mod, a not very awesome install. I mentioned earlier that the install took me pretty much all day. I think I started the job at like 11 o'clock and I didn't pull out of the garage till about 9 p.m. And like I said, it's just due to being here, working on my back, the wrong tools for the job, just all sorts of excuses. But nonetheless, we got it done. The car runs, it drives, it feels amazing. The shifter is awesome. It's super crisp, but the throws are really short, and I couldn't be more stoked. The car has never felt more like a race car than it does right now. And when you combine that with the fact that I also replaced the engine and trans mounts with Revshift 95A poly bushings, the car is significantly more stiff feeling. Obviously, I didn't change anything suspension wise, but you can hear a lot more of the vibrations in the car now. Obviously, now the engine and trans vibrations kind of vibrate through the car a lot more. You could probably hear it in the driving clip that I just showed you guys inside the car where I was shifting. You can hear kind of like a hum when I'm, you know, speeding up and stuff, and that is now due to these solid bushings. But for me, it's not overkill. It doesn't make the car less fun to drive. In fact, it makes the car feel like more of a race car, which is what I'm going for. The car is destined for the track. I've been saying it for several videos now, and these are the type of mods that I'm trying to put on the car to get it ready for that. So hopefully you guys enjoyed what I was able to film. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the driving clips, and you could see just how short the throws are on the RTD shifter, as well as just how clunky and notchy it feels. It's so amazing. I mentioned in the beginning of the video that the best kinds of mods, in my opinion, are the mods that emphasize the driving experience, and that shifter just made the driving experience 10 times better than it was before. So I couldn't be more stoked. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any questions at all about, you know, if you just want to refresh your E36 shifter assembly, just the parts in that, or maybe you're going chassis mount and you have some questions, feel free to comment on the video or DM me. I'll put my Instagram link somewhere down here, or my Instagram username. But yeah, any questions, feel free to comment. Definitely like the video if you enjoyed what you saw, and definitely consider subscribing because I have a ton more parts going on the E36 and you guys don't want to miss it. But I appreciate you guys checking it out as usual. Thank you, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.